Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, once again, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of entire Evosys managed services team, we'd like to welcome you all to 22A Procurement and Advanced Procurement Supply Chain Advisory webinar session. This important session is to keep you fully synchronized with the new features and functionalities as a part of this quarter release which Oracle provides. My name is Hardik Patel and I'm an operations manager here at Evosys Managed Services. Today, I'm your host for this session, and I'm glad to introduce my colleague Parth Dave, who's part of vast supply chain team at Evosys. He's also acting as a global COE for managed services across the Evosys. Today, he'll take us through all the procurement and advanced procurement updates for 22A quarter release. Today's session is planned for around 45 minutes, and we'll also make sure that we also leave some time to answer all your questions you may have. Before we move to the agenda, let's have today's look at the quick disclaimer, which is very important. As we all noticed that Oracle has notified some customers about 22A upgrade happening along with 22B in the month of May. So some customers are requested to check the respective notification accordingly. However, this webinar is mainly to equip you with the latest updates on 22A. We would like to convey your approach towards the Oracle update in a very simpler method. We'll be taking you through vital analysis for the 22A updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporating new features and update easily into your system. Also, we'll sync you on any bugs or known issues if there are any. It's good to have an interactive session, so please do ask questions through chat or question panel. We'll answer them at the end of this session. In case if we run out of time, we'll also contact you back at a later stage and we'll answer all your questions. This is to give you a glimpse on how we have crafted structure of this session. So first thing you'll see is list of new features coming in 22A, detailing on features so you get brief understanding on what new features are all about. Next one is what are the business benefits and important takeaway for you as decision maker. There are 4 components wherein we have done in-depth analysis of features which we are going to present to you today. The first one is impact level analysis, which demonstrate the impact on end user. If it's a low impact, then regression testing can be avoided or not. If it's a high impact, then we need to opt for regression testing. The second one, which is we all are aware that there are some features which are default auto-enabled and by Oracle, and there are some which we need to opt for. And the third one highlights the nature of the feature. There would be certain configurations which may be required and some can be used without any changes. And the last one is a quick win. This term we use to simply convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what requires significant amount of time and effort to make use of this feature. Before we go to today's session, we would like to note down the industry your organization belongs to. So on the screen, you'll see the poll, and with that, if you can help us letting us know that which industry your organization belongs to, it would be great help. Thank you, everyone. I'll be closing the poll, and with that, I'll be immediately handing over to my colleague Parth, and he'll take you onto today's updates. Thank you, and over to you, Parth. Unmute yourself, and stage is yours.
Yep, thanks, Hardik. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So as Hardik mentioned about the disclaimer, once again, I would like to repeat that few of you might have received some communication from Oracle stating that directly from 21D, it would be upgraded to 22B to avoid some disruptions. However, few of the clients we also have the communications from where the release is still happening. So what we thought as a company is to anyhow go ahead with the sharing of the learning which we have based on the analysis which we did for these 22A features. This webinar is specifically focusing on procurement and advanced procurement features only. All right. So in this time, 22A As you all may be aware that we divide our webinars into the features which are listed by 22A in 4 different categories, mainly the ones which are which we think that are quick win, are default and does not require configuration, which requires some configuration, then which are opt-in, which means that if we want to go ahead with this feature, we would need to tick the checkbox about that specific feature in the offerings. And finally, based on our understanding and the experience about the feature and the module, we feel that few features might fall under the not quick win as a category. Those, as mentioned earlier, would specifically be either not of a great use based on the requirements which a specific user or client may have, and also requires certain extensive testing as well. So total 37 features are there, combining the advanced procurement and procurement modules. Starting with the quick wins, which are default in nature and which does not require any configuration. Starting with the first one, automatically inactivate the suppliers based on the activity. Now, what we feel, as far as the feature goes, that most of the organizations which have a high number of suppliers defined within their system sometimes require data cleansing of the supplier master as well. And we usually have the criteria whenever we think of inactivating a supplier, and the criteria could be, we have not done certain transactions with the supplier in past, let's say 1 year, or it's a one-time pay only supplier, or in general the suppliers does not have any transaction. So similarly, Oracle has then finally come up with such a feature, which is basically an ESS job or a scheduled process, if which we run with the provided parameters. As you can see, suppliers with no transaction, it is basically a yes or a no. Months since last transaction had happened with that specific supplier. So you can mention any number of months over here. As the example states, if we enter 24 months, so it will consider past 2 years of history. If there were any transactions, it would avoid, but if there are no transactions found for such supplier in past 24 months, it will count it and it will make it inactive. Similarly, whether it's a paid one-time supplier, so if we have defined that supplier as a one-time pay only, then it can consider by selecting yes or no. And it also gives us an feature inside it only, that we can generate a specific list where we can just understand what would be the suppliers that would fall under this criteria. So before taking up the decision, we can generate that list as well to get an idea, circulate it within the team, and then finally go ahead by rerunning the process and finally submitting it. Once it gets succeeded, the suppliers will get inactive. So overall, the business benefit against it would be to perhaps cleanse or to have a better data management of the supplier master. And we feel this is a high impact feature. It does not need any enablement. Means all these features which I'm going to say would be all default in nature. It does not require any configuration, and we feel that's a quick win. Second is the bug which Oracle has resolved in 22A. The feature says that allow supplier changes to a PO regardless of the minimum release amount, which means that suppliers are now able to edit the PO amount even if it doesn't meet the minimum release amount criteria. So this change or this specific feature, the outcome would only be in place if the supplier has initiated the changes. Of course, the buyer cannot perform the changes in such case. Again, this is of a higher impact and it's a quick win. Recover approval exceptions using action details and transaction console. So this is one such feature which perhaps any organization would like to have, because it solves our majority of the approval related issues. Often we have cases where the approval hierarchy or the overall approval structure is not working properly, the requisition has gone into error, and we finally somehow don't know what exactly would be the cause behind it. Now Oracle has given such option through the action details page. Basically it will not reject the document. Say for example, if a purchase requisition has been submitted and it does not find a specific approver, or for any reason the approval rules are not getting triggered, it will keep the document into pending approval status. So we can go back and query based on the status saying that which all documents are pending approval. Select any of them, and if we click on the pending approval, it will lead us to this action detail page, where as you can see, it can highlight us the specific rule set, whether it's in a header hierarchy or a post header hierarchy or a pre header hierarchy, and accordingly we can make the necessary changes into the setups. So overall it helps us to easily uh, uh, work on the exceptions which are getting created because of the approval issues. Again, this is of a higher impact and it's a quick win. This is a part of SQM, supplier qualification management, where we are creating questions for the supplier. So the feature is filter questions with critical responses. So as in buying organization, we try to create the questions which are in general critical or important in nature for us. So Oracle has now given an option of selecting such questions and marking them as critical question, which at the end would help us to quickly review them as soon as the suppliers are filling out the questionnaire. And as you can see on the screen, while creating so while creating the question itself, we can tick it whether the question is a critical question, and when we are evaluating the qualification, um, we can view the critical questions that are being answered. So all the ones which are marked as exclamation sign would be considered as critical. So it helps us to quickly evaluate the questions which are being critical in nature for us. So it's more of a UI based feature change, which helps us in saving time of the evaluation. Next is the edit contract documents in Microsoft Word with content control box hidden. So it is more to do with the overall ease of editing the contracts in the Microsoft Word. So we know that in the procurement contracts, we have a feature of editing the contracts into Microsoft Word. Now from 22 onwards, the content control box will not be restricted, and the overall experience of writing the questions, or sorry, writing the contract would be practically improved, because the restriction of the content control box will be removed. So overall, it helps us to improve the way we are writing down the contract in the Microsoft Word. Improve visibility of pending variables in contract expert. So if we are using the feature of uh, running the contract expert, it now improves the visibility by showing us the variables which are pending. So it populates, if we run the if we run the contract expert, it will populate us the pending variables, that these are the ones which needs to be entered, and overall it gives us a better visibility at a single go itself. So this feature enhances our visibility towards updating the variables which are pending. So these were the ones which were quick wins default but did not require configuration. Now we are going to check similar in nature but which requires some set of configuration. It could be not a major configuration that needs to be worked upon. So starting with the automatically send contracts for signature in DocuSign. So any of us, if we have taken the DocuSign license and we are using the DocuSign for electronically signing the documents, Oracle has now given the option of automatically sending the contracts to DocuSign by setting this attribute which is mentioned, auto send for signature to yes. So overall, it helps us to communicate or to improve the communication process a little bit in a quicker way, and it is also helping us to avoid any manual uh, uh, intervention, because now we can we can use the update feature by SOAP or REST web services as well. Um, some of the existing REST services which are there for the procurement side, it has been enhanced, and as listed down over here on each of these documents, be it purchase requisition, draft PO purchase order, or supplier negotiations, one or the other REST services have been enhanced. So it's helping us at the end if we are having any integration, or we are using the REST services to communicate to a third party. Now, looking into the quick wins which are opt-in in nature. So as the word says, we need to opt in if we want to go ahead with such features which are present, and it's a simple checkbox which we need to enable under the offerings. Now, the first feature shows the dual unit of measure. So if we are having item definition, or if we are using inventory, and we are having the items which are defined, but we also have a requirement of having a second unit of measure which is primary and secondary. So from 22A onwards, it is basically helping us to uh, order, price, receive, pick, pack, and ship the items with which are enabled both on primary as well as secondary unit of measure. Now, this is the feature which needs to be enabled, and once we enable the dual unit of measure, it then helps us to perform or start using the sub features of it. So one of the sub features of dual unit of measure is request items that are priced in the secondary unit of measure. So as you can see in the example, um, the example says that this item, the primary unit of measure is case, and the secondary unit of measure is pound. So it could be possible that you are procuring the items in case, but you are selling the items in pounds, or vice versa, whichever it is. But from 22A onwards, we can request the items that are priced in secondary unit of measure as well. So before 22A, the feature was there, but the secondary quantity we were not able to edit. So the restriction of editing the secondary quantity has been removed from 22A onwards. So that's the change which Oracle has brought from 22A onwards. So overall business benefit, I would say, is to have the option of capturing dual unit of measure and also being able to edit the secondary quantity. The basic assumption under this would be that the uh, conversions between these two unit of measures are already in place. Second, or the other sub feature within the dual unit of measure, is automatically derive ordered quantity for items priced in the secondary unit of measure. So um, when you are ordering, so when you have entered the secondary quantity in the secondary UM, and the items are enabled for the dual unit of measure, the application will automatically calculate the quantity of the UM. So as mentioned in 20 up till 21D, we were not able to edit the secondary quantity, but from now onwards, we would be able to do that. Another feature on the supplier portal side, which is an opt-in in nature, is to allow parent supplier access uh, to negotiations in the supplier portal. So if, for example, the suppliers are having such a hierarchy that there is a parent company, and within that there are uh, child companies. So the the example is given over here, that Pennypack Systems. This is a hypothetical example that a parent company named as Pennypack Systems is there. There is a specific contact which is present, and there are two child companies under this. One is Big Computers, and the second is First Software. So if we are sending the negotiations to the child company, and if this structure is in place from 22A onwards, the supplier, the parent company's supplier contact can also access the negotiations which are being sent to the child organization contact. So in this case, if we are sending it to May Wright, uh, Wendy Ackerman has also the access uh, to to the negotiations which are being sent to the subsidiaries. So overall, what it helps is to increase the transparency, because sometimes the final decisions may lie with the parent company only. So it could be possible that Wendy in this case could be answering on behalf of May as well. So this feature, as per our understanding, could increase the transparency during the negotiation process. The another one, onto the similar grounds, is identify if a supplier contact has an active user account. So while you are preparing the RFQ or the negotiation, and you are trying to add a contact, sometimes it is possible that the supplier contact which we got earlier while defining the supplier in the first place is now not active. Um, and it could be possible that we are already submitting the negotiation, and it because it is inactive, we might never receive a response from them. So now Oracle has given an option while creating the RFQ itself. If you click on the drop down for this specific supplier site, which are the contacts that are tagged, it will show the status of the supplier contact as well. So all of these contacts will be created as, or will be having a user account. That means that they are uh, defined as the user for suppliers and have the access of supplier portal. So that's where we would be able to maintain the status for that specific user. Hence, this feature would overall help us to increase the visibility while creating the RFQ. The next feature is automatically send survey question as reminder and close response period. So as you can see on the screen, you know, on under the questionnaire, and this is an internal questionnaire, we can set reminders first, second, and third, and mention the dates after which, after how many days to the due date we want to send the reminders. And finally, if no response has been received, then we can finally close it. One another field which Oracle has added is the close threshold. So if, say for example, 80% of the responses are already received, still we can go ahead and close this questionnaire as well. So it overall helps us to periodically send the reminders and improve the overall process. Another feature on the contract side is we show variable values in supplier and customer contract deviation report. So this purely depends on if we are using deviation report as part of our process. Then it will help us to overall show the variable values on the deviation report. So we can view the system as well as user variable values in our deviation report. So these were the, I would say, features that we feel are more of a quick win, but are either opt-in or default in nature and do require some set of configuration. Now the ones which we are going to show over here are not quick wins. It could be possible that some of the features which are being shown uh, could be useful to the organization, and it purely depends on the current requirement which the organization has. So starting with the import purchase order for item priced in the secondary unit of measure. So earlier we saw the front end or the UI for the secondary secondary unit of measure. This is on the FBDI side. So on the FBDI part as well, Oracle has you know added the unit of measure feature to import the purchase order that have been priced on the secondary unit of measure. So that's a feature that has been added, and it is helping us to simplify the integration if we are using FBDI for that integration purpose. Now, on the similar grounds for the pricing or the secondary unit of measure, we can also generate reports on the OTBA side. So any field which is been defined on the UI, we would be able to see in the OTBA side as well. So such is the case in this example, that the pricing uh, is visible, which is the secondary unit of measure, or in this case, it has been defined as pricing unit of measure. It is shown on the OTBA side as well. Another feature which earlier was a bug, which Oracle has resolved in 22A, is change the source agreement reference for the same item with multiple supplier items using REST resources. So this specifically is only pertaining to REST services if we are using. So up till 22A, we were not able to change the source agreement reference for a master item if the supplier item number is different between the existing PO or the new supplier agreement. But from 22A onwards, we would be able to change that as well through the REST web services. And this is the bug ID which got resolved in 22A. Another one is manage approval rules for external purchase prices. So if we are using external purchase prices, then Oracle has now come up with the approval rules also, where we can specifically provide the conditions that are necessary for the external purchase prices, and it overall improves the options in the approval rules that can capture the external purchase price. Similarly, there is an option to exclude the external purchase price lines from specific selections. So this is an example of external purchase price, and Oracle has now given the uh, option of controlling the or optionally excluding the uh, purchase prices from the selection. So it helps us to improve the control overall on the selection side. Manage approval exceptions from transaction console. So like what we saw earlier on the requisition, or in general the approval exceptions. Similarly, this is the snapshot of the transaction console for the external purchase price only. So this helps us to monitor the external purchase price approval workflow, and it helps us to also understand what could be the log behind it, or the reasons for why the exception has occurred. So we can download the diagnostic logs as well to understand what could be the exact reason behind it. Now, this is specifically for usage of DataFox. So if we have taken the licenses for the DataFox, then the feature says that use DataFox supplier intelligence in supplier self-service registration. So it helps us to uh, intelligently identify a supplier information. For example, this is a pop-up which has been auto-suggested through this DataFox supplier intelligence feature, and it suggests that this is the address for the supplier while you are registering it. So it is intelligently suggesting us based on certain uh, uh, algorithms which have been set on the DataFox supplier intelligence side. Sorry. Similarly, on the DataFox side, it helps us to identify risk indicator score during the registration process. So uh, you know rules can be defined. If the score, for example, DataFox score is less than 0, then it should go to a specific approval group for an approval process. Support other service providers for intelligent Oracle Business Network connectivity. This is specifically for Oracle Business Network (OBN), and you can in sorry you can now opt in this feature to leverage the automatic B2B messaging set up within the Oracle suppliers OBN. Earlier, this feature was not there up till 21D. Another on the DataFox supplier intelligence side is the uh, the DataFox intelligence score. So a score can also be published while researching on a supplier to identify that what is the best option for us to pick a specific supplier, and accordingly we can take the necessary actions. Changes to the large text content in the amendments and the new rounds. So while amending the RFQ, the option earlier was restricted to a limited set of text content only. Now it has the new feature is allowing us to change the context to a larger extent, and the restrictions are taken off by Oracle in 22A. This is during the amendment process of the RFQ. Generate reports on descriptive Flexfields in supplier qualification management. So if we are using the Flexfields on the supplier qualification, then it is possible in the OTBI to now generate a report as well for the Flexfields which are mentioned in this slide. Use DataFox supplier intelligence risk indicator score in qualifications. Again, if we are using DataFox intelligence option and we have taken the license, then we can use these options as well to show us the risk indicator score in the qualifications for the supplier. This helps us to better assess a specific supplier during the qualification process. I think we already visited this. Conduct internal survey for supplier qualification. So this helps us to improvise the supplier qualification process by internally conducting a survey. So this is within the organization. If you want to get a vibe about the supplier from the team within, then we can also conduct an internal survey for the supplier qualification process. Generate reports on the survey qualifications and response. So OTBI basically has the option of now creating a report for these many options: qualification response and then its details, and similarly qualification survey response and its details. Improvements to the knowledge based management. So if you are creating any KBA, then it has slightly improved on the overall aspect that it's now more of a focused and a refined list of the data set which is provided for the selection while creating the knowledge base. So this, if we are creating or if we are using the knowledge base management as an option and creating a KBA, then we can use this feature. Then this feature would be more useful. Automate the classification process. So spend classification, start spend classification is a ESS job which we can run, and we can then classify the suppliers automatically by running this process, and these are the set of criteria or the parameters while running the ESS job. Define and use additional data elements in the classification process. So attributes are now available to capture additional business information while we are performing the classification process. Similarly, add your organization's expenses as a new data set and classify it into local categories. So expenses can now be added in the configuration option to capture the logical categorization of it. Automate the extraction of purchasing category from Oracle Procurement Cloud. So it's just I would say a ESS job to extract the purchasing category from the Oracle procurement. If we have defined any of the purchasing categories, then it could extract that information for us. Print custom object attributes from contract deviation report. So again, this is more of a deviation report option. If we are using it, then we can now print the custom object attributes also from our deviation reports. So these were the list of quick wins, and as mentioned, as mentioned earlier, the not quick wins could be pretty much based on one's requirement, what they have, and accordingly, it could be either useful to you because most of them were focusing either on KBAs, knowledge base, or supplier qualification processes. A few of them were focusing on the REST services which are available, and a little bit on the survey part as well. So these are the features. Before concluding, these are the features which are related to the purchasing side of it, or procurement and advanced procurement, which basically covers supplier qualification, management, sourcing, supplier portal, and procurement contracts as modules. Thank you. Over to you, Hardik.
Thank you, Parth, for the wonderful detailed insights today. Before we just quickly move to Q&A, we would like to quickly note down your area of interest in order to organize future webinar with the more fruitful contents. On the scale, if you can please let us know your area of interest on the managed services or innovation technologies, value-based analytics, cloud transformation. If you do have any question to understand any of this, you can reach out to a dedicated project manager as well, and we are more than happy to arrange a one-to-one session as well. Thank you for your inputs. We do not have any questions except one, which we will get back at a later stage. We need to do a research and response on the same. Before you all leave us, we would quickly like to tell you that we have other sessions coming up for the supply chain inventory and order management on 10th of Feb, and we have some human resource HRMS sessions, also the finance session also coming up on 8th of February, HR help desk, and the project portfolio management PPM is coming on 10th as well. So you can take a note of it, and you can also register yourself and be part of this. We'll also send you a recording of this session so that you can you can pass it to your colleagues along with the PPT PDF file. Along with the recording, we'll be sending you that. It will also be on the YouTube channel of Evosys, so you can refer there as well. It will be live in 48 hours time. And once again, thank you everyone for your valuable time. Thank you.